All right, guys. Boy, let me tell you, tonight has been a night trying to get technical issues sorted out on the software here, and this is the second time. So I've been super busy and haven't had much opportunity to do videos for a while. In the past two times I tried to do videos, there was just all kinds of technical issues with the software, and there were different issues. And the last time I tried to use it, I got everything sorted out. I spent like probably 2 hours figuring things out, sorting things out, got it, everything perfect. Then I thought, okay, everything's good to use the software. Tried to use it again, more technical issues. I don't know if it's because of a system update or what, but anyway, we're going to get into this video here real quick. This is by Filipina P. And this one is called, Are Women a Bad Bet? Or is it better not to play the game? I found this one interesting. I want to get into it, and let's take a look at some interesting commentary for this one. Definitely.
Hi folks, the Filipina P here. And I don't usually do reaction videos. In fact, I think I've only done about 3 or 4. But somebody sent me a video about how relationships are basically just a roll of the dice. And after watching it, I decided it was a video worth discussing. I usually do stuff related to the Philippines, but since this topic is universal, I think it's something every guy needs to consider. So let's get to it. Are relationships a bad bet?
Now, I could answer that question right off the bat. Are relationships a bad bet? Here in the West, yes, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
So this video is from a channel called Psych Hacks. I'm not familiar with his other content, but let's get right into this one.
I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is Psych Hacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is women are a roll of the dice. Okay, men, this episode is for you. As I've previously discussed, dating is an extended hiring process in which you, the man, are the employer, because you, the man, are in a position to extend an offer to the woman and not the other way around. This means that dating is really an opportunity to surreptitiously vet a woman for the relationship position of your choosing.
Yep.
Surreptitiously. There's the $1.50 word for today, right? It's $1.50 word. Actually, due to inflation, it's probably more like about a $3 word now. Maybe even $3.30. So he's got a good point there. Traditionally, and basically since the dawn of civilization, the men were the ones, generally speaking, there were exceptions in different civilizations, but generally speaking, the men were the ones to say, okay, here is my offer to you, the woman that I am dating, that I would like to pursue things with, right?
Women are the gatekeepers of sex, but men are the gatekeepers of relationships. It's almost like you guys are the buyers and women are the sellers. And it's our job to convince you that what we have to offer is better than what other women have.
However, for better or for worse, your capacity to do this will be compromised by the fact that you will likely be attracted to the woman you are vetting. And attraction does all kinds of things to your perception. The more you are attracted, the more distorted your perception becomes.
This is true. And also, to comment on what she said, yeah, women are selling something, right? And I often wonder if that's why there isn't such a trend amongst women now to try to sell themselves using their looks. Like, you see a lot of women running around in skin-tight clothes. You don't see many men doing that. So it kind of fits with the whole thing that they're trying to sell themselves in order to get something in return, right? In order to... It's almost like when they say, a woman is fishing for a man. You could use a metaphor like, her body is the fishing lure, right? And you've got to make that the most attractive, really enticing fishing lure in order to catch the fish that you want, right?
No freaking joke. And this is something I'm always warning you guys about. But a lot of you just won't listen. I understand that attraction, which is often physical, is the first thing you're gonna notice. But once you fall under a woman's spell, it's virtually impossible for you to see clearly, and you start making excuses for all the red flags. Some people might call it one-itis, and that's a pretty good term for it because you're unable to contrast her with anyone else.
Well, that's true, but I think a really important point there as well is that if a woman is really attractive, the more attractive she is, the more you get infatuated with her and the more you are emotionally driven instead of using logic and reason, right? So, and then yes, and then that can definitely turn into one-itis. I don't think you're necessarily going to have one-itis right off the bat, but the more attractive that can definitely happens more likely.
She's the one, and it's like your mind gets stuck in one gear. And the only thing you're worried about is locking her down as fast as you can. Bad move.
This is why I generally recommend that men do not make any kind of long-term, life-changing commitments to a woman for at least 12 months. This gives the couple time to pass through the crisis of disillusionment, in which the weight of...
I would add to that, I would say 12 months minimum, preferably 2 years, right? You want to go through at least 2 holiday seasons with a person, you know, to see how they handle stressful situations and stuff, because oftentimes holidays are stressful for a lot of people.
reality shatters the projected fantasy on which the attraction to this point was fundamentally based. So there is a 12-month minimum due diligence process within the overall hiring process that is courtship, in which men vet women for long-term relationships. Got it?
Got it. And I couldn't agree more. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Guys that just met a woman, and in the case of Filipinas, sometimes haven't even met in person. And within a couple of weeks, they're literally making plans to sell their homes and restructure their lives. And they hardly know anything about her. Guys are way too impatient to just lay down their assets and pin all their hopes on a fantasy. If you're willing to put a ring on her finger before you even know what her breath smells like in the morning or how she acts when she doesn't get her way, then you're definitely making a bad bet. You might still end up winning, but that doesn't mean it was a smart thing to do. Slow down, take a step back, and try to see the woman you're fixated on the same way you might look at a car for sale. That might not be...
Because you know, if that breath is bad in the morning, oh dear Jesus.
very romantic, but it sure is a lot less risky.
That said, even if you do all this, even if you follow...
I'm going to adjust the screen a little bit so you got, because she's right there in the bottom corner in her picture-in-picture. I just realized that. And I want you guys to see her facial expressions when she's listening to this guy, because that in and of itself is entertaining. So let me adjust this a little bit so you can see her. There she is. All right. I remember the first time I watched this video the other day, and I was like, I've got to do a review on this. And I was watching her facial expressions, listening to this guy, and I just kept laughing at myself because she's responding to things he's saying with her face, and a lot of times I was thinking the same thing. You guys will see. Let's watch.
all this advice and you, quote, do everything right, relationships ultimately remain a roll of the dice. You absolutely don't know, and you can't know what you're going to get in the long term. A woman who is great for the first 12 months of dating might be very different 12 years down the road. In fact, the most likely outcome is that you both will be very different. Your lives will be very different. What you prioritize will be very different. And what you want within those priorities will be very different. On some level, it's quite strange
Yes.
that we expect the same person to meet these evolving needs and wants and priorities even decades later. But that's apparently still how we operate as a culture.
Yeah, because the new car smell is gone. The honeymoon phase is long over, and the cute way she laughs or the way she talks with her mouth full no longer seems so attractive. And that torrential flood of sexual energy has dried to a trickle.
That new car smell is gone, baby. It's gone, gone, gone. Now it smells a little old and musty, like it needs a good shampooing and a good vacuum. Maybe just a good detailing. You know? Spray a little new car scent back in there. Get it smelling nice, like a new car once again. We're still talking about cars, right?
And like the good doctor says, it gets even worse because what you think you wanted and even the person that you were changes over time. Think of it this way. It's like both of you are pieces on a chessboard, and every time your goals and priorities change, you take a step forwards, backwards, or sideways. Now, what are the chances that after a decade, your pieces will still be next to each other on the board? It might happen, but how can you know?
The upshot is that no matter how well you vet a woman, no matter how much due diligence you perform, you will ultimately be rolling the dice with respect to that particular relationship. There's no way around it. So what you have to understand is that
What you have to understand before he goes on there, what you have to understand is that this is why it's so vital to take the time to properly vet. It doesn't matter if you're the guy, if you're the dude vetting the chick, or if you're the chick vetting the dude. You both have to take your time in making sure that the other person is worthy of committing to, right? And we can go down that list. I mean, trustworthiness, so on and so on. But it's worth taking your time to make sure that you're both on the same page, right? That, because if you got one person looking for a long-term relationship and the other person's just looking for a hookup or just casual dating, you can see the obvious conflict there.
all relationships with women are a form of gambling. You can learn the rules and do your research, but you still have to roll the dice. And this means that on some level, you should approach women like you approach gambling. And the first unbreakable rule of gambling is that you never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, ever gamble with more than you can afford to lose. This is the fundamental rule of gambling.
True. I don't have any dice around here. So I'm gonna roll the dice for you guys. Just right. That's more like throwing them. You gotta roll them. Rolling dice is actually an art. Like you've got to practice that. Getting it just right. You really gotta. Same with relationships, right?
All professional gamblers have their kitty, the money they play with, and they have the money they need to live and support their lifestyles. The two must remain separate and distinct. When a gambler starts to play with the money he needs to live is precisely the moment he crosses over into a gambling addiction. And that doesn't lead anywhere good. Professional gamblers can continue to play precisely because they keep their kitty separate from the money they need to live.
Well, I don't know if I want him playing with my kitty, but he makes a good point about not risking more than you're prepared to lose, which is why you shouldn't be forking over your life savings. Ever.
Has America failed traditional men?
Find your traditional partner.
Oh, Christian
Believe it or
Filipina.
not, Filipino women actually respect and appreciate
There you go,
American
guys.
men.
There you go.
We're passionate.
That
They're
way, they
passionate.
can stay afloat even if they get completely cleaned out at the tables. This is really important to remember because whether we like it or not,
Okay.
all relationships end. However, in our culture, relationships don't really end equally.
Now, unless you're counting death as a failed relationship, I don't agree that they always come to an end.
I would agree with her. They don't always come to an end. It depends on the individuals, right? And your sense of importance you have to the commitment. But in regard to what he just said, it's true that relationships usually do not end equally. Now, I'm not sure about Eastern societies, but I know Western societies, the large majority of the time, again, there's always exceptions, but the large majority of the time, the man loses out big time. So let's see what else we got. So far, there's a lot of thought-provoking information here, right? And she chose a good video to react to.
I know lots of couples that lasted till one of them passed away, but it's true that the odds aren't in your favor.
No.
Here's a cold, hard
But-
fact. If you're lucky, a maximum of only one relationship in your entire lifetime will go the distance. I mean, think about all the relationships you had. Not a single one lasted. And if you're currently in one, all you can do is hope. But no matter how positive you feel right now, history shows that chance is against you. I hate to say it, but statistically speaking, your current relationship probably won't make it either.
Many years ago, a mentor of mine was consoling me after a heartbreak. He told me, Orion,
It's why I enjoy being single. Yeah, so you, well, I'll add more later. Let's continue.
a woman is like a tsunami. When she leaves, she takes everything with her. I can't remember if I laughed or not because it might still have been a little too close to home, but the man had a point. Women are generally the ones to leave. They disproportionately initiate breakups and divorces. And when they leave, they can take a lot with them. And this means, like a responsible gambler, you can't ever give them more than you can afford to lose. I don't just mean this from the perspective of resources, though that is certainly important. If you're concerned about your resources, then just don't sign the marriage contract. And if
And it's true because, you think about it in business, right? If you're doing a business contract, why in the world would you ever sign a contract that is written to allow for the other party to benefit either way, whether they keep the contract or whether they break the contract? You wouldn't sign a contract that's rigged against you, right?
If you absolutely must for some reason, then make sure you get a strong negotiated prenup. Before you do, no exceptions.
Absolutely. You all know how I
She's in the little picture down there going, which, yeah, I can agree. You've got to be careful about that, though, because a lot of prenups in court, if they're not rock solid, they won't hold up. So
feel about this subject because I've said it like a billion times now. I know some of you out there disagree with me and you think that getting a prenup means that you don't trust your future wife or that you're setting yourself up to fail. But we've already established that most relationships eventually end. I'm sure you
that is a fact.
You've heard the analogy, but would you jump with a parachute that had a 50% failure rate? Just consider a prenup like a backup chute. What's the problem?
But I also mean this from the perspective of your emotional investment. It's important to protect your heart. If you go all in emotionally, then you're going to be completely devastated when that relationship ends. And trust me, you don't have unlimited emotional resources. It's very difficult, if not functionally impossible, to go all in emotionally more than a few times in your life. So the first rule of gambling makes sense. Never play with more than you can afford to lose. That said, some people love to resist this advice. They balk, "Oh, Orion, what's the point of love if you hold back? Love is all about going all in. Otherwise, why even bother? It's just not worth it. and I wouldn't settle for anything less anyway. This is the most common rebuttal I hear to this fundamental rule. And in my experience, the reason behind this rebuttal differs depending on the gender of the rebuttee. Allow me to explain. Now, if I hear this objection from a woman that she wants all in or nothing, well, I just sort of chuckle to myself. Because that's kind of like the casino insisting that I raise my bet. And it's like, no shit, the casino would want me to do that. After all, the house always wins, doesn't it? Now, casinos can set like minimum standard bets at their tables. However, if a casino were to insist that players gamble with their entire holding in order to play, well, they probably wouldn't have a lot of customers. And those they did receive, in all likelihood, wouldn't be very happy customers for very long. This objection serves the house's best interests, not its customers. So just smile and...
I'm trying to watch the guy in the video, and every time I glance down at her, the faces she's making, I gotta try to keep myself from laughing. Oh man, this girl, very entertaining. Very entertaining. I don't know if I could hang out with somebody like that and not be laughing all the time. But then again, is that really a bad thing? It's probably a good thing, but...
move on. However, sometimes
Jesus.
this objection comes from men. When the objection comes from a man that he wants all in or nothing, it's somewhat more puzzling, but I'll explain where it's coming from. These men are really in to the emotional component of their relationships. Like I've said, most people, men and women, most people want to be the adorer in their relationships because it's the adorer who gets to feel the feelings. And the best feeling that adorers get to feel is the feeling of being with the one they love, which, when everything is going well, is one of the best feelings in the entire world. Relationships are like gambling in the sense that the higher the stakes, the more you're going to feel. You can play it safe and just bet with nickels, but you probably won't feel anything one way or the other. You might not ever lose your shirt, but you also won't ever really get ahead, so why bother playing? The men who insist on going all in don't do so because they hope to win big. They might, temporarily, but this is the less likely outcome, and the house always wins in the end anyway. They insist on going all in because they are chasing an emotional experience. They want to feel something. And just like a gambling addict, they might not be able to feel something unless the stakes are very, very high. So you should be cautious with respect to following these people's advice.
I'm not sure I agree with that advice, at least not until we figure out exactly what he means by holding something back emotionally. As I've said before, we have a saying in Tagalog that gives that same warning. Huwag magmahal ng lubusan, magtira para sa sarili, which translates to, don't love 100%, save some for yourself. But what does that actually look like? I'm not gonna let myself love you as much as I could. Even if that's a smart strategy, is it even possible? Is love something you can consciously control? Maybe he means trust but verify.
Yeah, I think she's got a really good point there, because why hold yourself back if you really care about somebody? Like, if you... Yeah, I can totally see what she's saying. Makes sense.
Keep your eyes open for signs of shady behavior so you don't get caught off guard. Well, sure, I think that's wise. Or have a backup plan as far as what you do if things don't work out. Great idea. Maybe it just means accepting the fact that the relationship probably won't last forever, which is something I can do while still giving all my love. And as far as raw emotion, how do you put a limit on that? And should you even try? He says there's a finite amount of love to give. And if that's the case, I might agree, but I'd have to see the data on that. Maybe I'm just too naive, but after having my heart broken a bunch of times and being in my mid-30s, I'm still willing to give it everything I've got. I don't think he ever explains exactly how to hold back some of your love, but I'd like to know what he meant. Maybe I give too much of myself?
No offense, but if you
I mean, that's a positive attitude, right? She's in her mid-30s, so she's still willing to give all of herself. A lot of people, once they reach that point of having been through several uh, relationships or what have you, and it didn't work out, and they gave it their all, fully vested, fully in 100%. Most people aren't willing to do that anymore, so that says a lot right there. Uh, let's skip this. I don't know what this
still
advertisement
think
is here,
stocks,
guys.
real estate, or crypto are the best passive income
Real
investments in
estate.
today's economy, I'm sorry, but
Really?
To summarize, since women are a form
He's
of
gonna
gambling,
summarize.
never
Okay.
invest more in a woman materially or emotionally than you can afford to lose. And understand that any objections to
sense.
this advice are typically in the service of the casino and not its customers. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience? Let me know in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your support and thank you for listening.
Well, thanks for that, Dr. Taraban. I enjoyed your video, and maybe sometime we'll take a look at another one. And now I'd like to add my final thoughts. I understand the gambling analogy, especially as it relates to a man risking his assets. But I'm not convinced that relationships are necessarily a zero-sum game with only one winner and one loser. If you understand the rules and place your bets wisely, it's possible for both parties to win. But I do agree that in cases where there's only one winner, it's always the house. Now, I know I'll probably catch hell for saying this, and I freely admit I could be wrong. But the more I study the subject, the more I'm convinced that men love more deeply than women, which puts men at the bigger disadvantage of not knowing when to fold their hand. Women are quicker to cash in their chips, leaving men with the short stack. But if you protect your initial stake in the form of a prenup, you can cap your losses, at least financially. And if you're smart about who you sit down with in the first place, I think it's still a game worth playing. Well, that's it for this episode.
I would
And if
agree.
you enjoyed this reaction format, just let me know in the comment section. In the meantime, I'll be cooking up something good for Tuesday, and that's something you can bet on. Till then, folks. If you think about it, I'm kind of like your stewardess, making sure you stay in an upright position during the video and guiding you to the exits. The exits of all your worries about life in the Philippines. The captain has asked that you please give a thumbs up on this video and subscribe to this channel. And for your entertainment, we have a selection of other in-flight movies for you to enjoy. In the case of an emergency landing, place your head between your knees and kiss your ass goodbye. Have a nice flight!
So that's it's an old saying. Bend over, I remember it goes like, bend over and put your head between your ankles and kiss your ass goodbye or something like that. But yeah, a lot of good points in that video, a lot of good points. And I think she's right. I think it's still worth doing it. It's still worth playing the game if both parties are on the same page, right? Because in a sense, then it goes from, if both parties are on the same page, then it goes from being a game where you're gambling to something much more stable, right? With a stable foundation instead of just rolling the dice and gambling, right? So there's a lot to think about there. There's a lot to think about in that one. But all right, guys, I'm gonna leave it there. It is getting late. It is really late. It is like 4 in the morning here. So anyway, guys, a lot to think about there. All right, so as always, I'm gonna post the link below, and go check out her video on her channel. And I will see you soon. I'll be doing other reaction videos as well. So anyway, we'll see you guys soon. Hope you all have an awesome day. And bye-bye for now.